everyone, my name is Helene and today I'm here to do my July wrap-up part 1. This is where I talk about the books that I've read during the first 2 weeks of July, and I have six books to talk about, so let's get started. Now the first book I read is quite of a beast of a book, and I read this together with a bunch of booktubers, which was so much fun because we got to discuss it and talk about it and all that jazz. And that is The Crimson Petal and the White by Michel Faber. This was also my first book by Michel Faber, and I was curious because he has become quite famous and I wanted to read one of his works just to see what he was all about. This is historical fiction. It takes place in England during the Victorian era, and for that alone I loved it because I love reading about that era. The story in itself was brilliant as well. This is about Sugar, who is a prostitute but who develops in life because she meets a man called William who helps her. And I'm not going to say too much else about the story other than it has a lot of references to Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, which you may know I love. It's one of my favorite books. So I really like this book. All in all, I felt it was such a great story, such an interesting plot, and I just really liked it. So I gave it 4 stars. I did feel like some of the things happening came out of the blue, but in general I just really liked it. Now the next book I read I didn't really like, and that is The Fair Fight by Anna Freeman. This book was not for me. I know a lot of people who have read it and loved it, so please don't take my word for granted. Maybe you will like it, but this book was just not for me. This is about women boxing in the 1800s, I believe, and alone for that I found the book interesting. I felt like this was a new topic that I hadn't read about, so I decided to pick it up. It is a fairly recent release. It was released last year, I think. However, I did feel a disconnect to the characters we were introduced to, and I had a hard time getting into the story. But then there was one chapter towards the beginning of the book that I really liked, and I felt like now things were starting. But then things went downhill from there, and in the end I had such a hard time getting through this book. I read a page and I needed to take a break because I was so frustrated, and then I read another page and I needed to take another break. I felt like throwing this book across the room. I had such a hard time with it towards the end. I may have been a little bit too harsh in my rating because I did rate this 1 star, but I really did enjoy some parts of it, but my overall impression was just frustration. So 1 star. What I was frustrated with is the fact that this has so many heavy descriptions, but that wasn't the worst of it. What I really didn't like was the fact that I didn't connect with any of the characters, and that's a huge problem when reading a novel because you are going to invest and spend a lot of time with these characters. So all in all, not my favorite of the month at all, and I'm sorry. I mean, I shouldn't be, but I am, because I know of so many people who love this, but it just wasn't for me. Afterwards, I needed to pick up a book that I knew that I was going to like, and that is The Secret Lives of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd. This is a book about 2 women, a little girl of 14 and a black woman of 50, I think, who decide to escape from the girl's father, who is very violent and not very kind. They escape and they come to this new village in America where they are being taken in by 3 sisters. This book is a lot of fun, even though it also deals with some heavy topics such as racism and segregation, love and loss, etc. But it is quite funny. It isn't until towards the end that it starts getting quite heavy. I did enjoy the story, and it did put a smile to my face quite a lot of times. So in the end I gave it 3 stars. I did feel like some of the things happening became a bit too silly and unrealistic, and I'm not going to go too much into what that is, but all in all, such a funny read and interesting read as well, so 3 stars for me. The 4th book I picked up is a Robin Hobb book, my very first Robin Hobb book, and that is The Dragon Keeper, the first book in the Rainwell Chronicles series. This was such a good read. I needed a great fantasy book and I got it. I will say though that I felt when finishing this book that it could have gotten so much better, and I think the books in the series will become even better, but I don't know. So in the end I gave this one 3 stars, but I really liked it and I think it's a great start to a series. This book is basically about some dragons who need to be transported from one place to another because where they are right now they are not having a great time. They basically have a hard time surviving. So they hire some humans that need to help them. So we follow this story through different perspectives. One perspective is from a dragon and I love that. And then we also have some perspectives of the humans. All in all, such a great read, just what I was looking for. And this is definitely not going to be my last book by Robin Hobb. July turned out to be the month of Michel Faber because the next book I read is his other very popular novel, and that is The Book of Strange New Things. This is completely different to The Crimson Petal and the White that I showed you in the beginning because this is a sci-fi book that takes place on another planet, and I was very hesitant to pick up this book. It took me 6 months to do so because I don't read sci-fi and I don't like reading about things taking place on other planets. And thirdly, this book is also about religion because it deals with the main character who is a priest, and it deals very much with his life and his sermons. So I was very hesitant, but so many people have praised this book, so I decided to pick it up. And I'm so happy I did because this was a 5-star book for me. It was fantastic. Simply because it was so unique. It's like nothing I've ever read before, and I loved it. Even though this takes place on another planet, I had no hard time understanding what was going on, and Michel Faber does such a great job describing the setting and the surroundings. I actually ended up really liking the aliens that we hear about. I mean, this book is going to sound so silly to you because I'm talking about aliens and the planet, another planet, etc. But it isn't, because this book deals with some topics that are so relevant for us today, and that is, for instance, love and loss, commitment, open-mindedness, etc. And I just really appreciated it. I love this book and therefore I gave it 5 stars. And the very last book I read is a very short book, and that is The Persian Pickle Club by Sandra Dallas. This book is about a club of women who gather to quilt, which is very cozy and nice, and I did feel like this was a very cozy read in the beginning. It takes place in the United States, in the heat, in the 1930s. You get to eat pie, you get to drink iced tea, you get to chat with your friends. I loved it. However, this book surprised me because it took a turn that I didn't see coming, and in the beginning I was very skeptical. I didn't like all the questions that I suddenly had in my head. I felt like Sandra Dallas became way too unpredictable with her story, and I didn't like it. But then I reached the end and I was sold. This book wraps up so beautifully, and I ended up giving it 4 stars simply because it has so many beautiful elements in it. It has this friendship, it has this American rural life, and it also has these new aspects that I'm not going to reveal to you because you have to read it for yourselves. But basically this book surprised me and I ended up loving it, so 4 stars for me. That is it for my first wrap up of the month. I will be back again towards the end of the month with my second wrap up. I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you so much for watching, each and every one of you. Have a great day and happy reading. Bye bye.